What wish I knew about pre-approvals. 7 questions every real estate agent should ask about the next lender letter they receive. Now, I used to be a real estate agent, and these are some things now that I'm a lender that I wish I would have known when I was a real estate agent. So let's dive in. So first of all, none of these questions require the lender to reveal any personal information or private information about the borrower buyer. A lot of lenders, a lot of loan officers are going to try and cop out on answering questions by saying, oh, that's personal or that's private. None of these questions require the lender to reveal anything personal or private. All right, so the first question, when were the most recent pay stubs and bank statements collected? Will the borrower buyer need to provide newer ones before closing? So why that matters? Well, sometimes you did the initial pre-approval a month or two ago, and those documents expired. And, the person could have taken time off. The person could have stopped working altogether. Same with bank statements. Maybe they had enough funds to close, and now they don't. So maybe they spent the money they were going to use for closing. So a simple question is just, hey, is the documentation current? Really, is this pre-approval more than 30 days old? Okay, income. If the borrower buyer is self-employed or has variable income. So variable income is if you work less than 40 hours a week, or you have OT, or you have tips. I'm working with somebody who has tips right now. So, if the buyer borrows self-employed variable income, guess what? Like we might be somewhat good at calculating that, but a lot of times the banks will have an underwriter calculate it for us. And sometimes banks actually calculate it a little bit differently. There are some Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines on how to calculate it exactly, so that shouldn't vary too much from bank to bank. But if you're doing bank statement income, like each bank is going to interpret bank statement income differently. So simply asking if an underwriter reviewed or calculated the income for you or for the loan officer is a good way to get some more confidence in that income calculation. All right, money. Have the funds for down payment and closing been verified and sourced, including large deposits? If not, why not? Okay, and are there reserve requirements? So the first thing is like, I think it's any deposit larger than 50% of their monthly mortgage payment has to be documented. But I think there's also a percent that has to be documented compared to their down payment. So just, hey, those basically any of those deposits, outside of their paychecks, have those been documented? And like if they have $50,000 that we're planning on them putting down, and 20,000 was a cash deposit 2 weeks ago, that's a big problem. So simply asking, and that might be a reminder just for the loan officer. Hey, did I check those deposits? Did I review those deposits? It might just be a good, like, okay, let's get in front of this and make sure we don't have any issues. Okay, AUS approval. So the AUS stands for Automated Underwriting System. And what we really want to know is, did the lender, the loan officer, put in you can run AUS as a TBD, to be determined. But if you have a property address, you're going to have taxes, you're going to have HOA input, you're going to have all these things input, and it's going to factor in their whole debt to income ratio. So that AUS approval is going to be more significant. Also, that's where we get our appraisal waiver. And that can change the whole view of the transaction if we have an appraisal waiver. Payment and cash to close. It's amazing to me how many buyers and borrowers write offers on properties and they don't know what their rate is at the moment, what their payment's going to be, and how much the cash to close is. And in fact, many states, that's just a line item in their purchase agreement is, you know, loan terms. Are they comfortable with their loan terms? Well, why can't they know that when they're writing their offer? Why wouldn't they know how much cash to close they need and um, what their payment and interest rate's going to be when they write their offer? So that's like a really easy button one to really dive down to how involved the lender has been with this client. All right, conditions. So, hey, I mean, I know like I can pre-approve somebody without most docs, or not without all docs to go into underwriting. Let me think of one that I might need. I don't know, verification of the HOA. I might need that to go into underwriting, but I wouldn't need to verify the HOA to pre-approve them. I would just look on Zillow or whatever and just see what the quoted HOA payment is. There's a few other items like that for the pre-approval I wouldn't need, but I would want it for the to get them into underwriting. So just a really easy question is, hey, do you have everything you need to get them into underwriting? So if we accept their offer, can we go into underwriting tomorrow, or do you have a bunch more documents to collect? And that just gives you a little bit of insight into the speed and how fast things could potentially move. All right, risk. Is there this question would I'm scared of somebody asking me this question on like a scary loan. So, is there anything about this loan that concerns you or could delay or stop the closing? You know, like that question to me would be yeah, if I had like some concerns, I'm like, do you lie? How evasive are you going to be? Like so definitely that's a good one. So we got 3 extra bonus questions I got for you. How recent was the credit pull? That's kind of similar to the other ones. Credit only lasts 60 days. Obviously, they could take out new debt. Their credit score could drop. So, I mean, if the credit was pulled more than 60 days or up 60 days or more ago, you might say, hey, can you pull credit again and make before we accept the offer, or before I take this buyer out, can we pull credit again? What exact dollar amount for HOA dues? Oh, so have you like taken into account for your pre-qual the exact HOA taxes and insurance? And you may not have the insurance. So, just simply asking, what did you estimate that at? Did you estimate homeowners insurance would be like $500? Like that, of course they qualify probably with a $500 annual homeowner insurance. But, I think it's super, super valuable to actually ask, what numbers did you use? And just make sure they didn't like softball it. And then this one kind of goes to the last question of the 7, which was, is there anything unique about this loan related to the borrower or the property that, I should know? So, I mean, I think this is super helpful. And I actually would look forward to this question because, hey, I'd won, like, we were waiting for a FICO score. Like, it would have been nice to just share that so we're all on the same page, but I don't necessarily want to advertise it either. But and we got it and it was just fine. Or, yeah, we're doing a bank statement loan and, I just want you guys, like, I'm very confident we can do this bank statement loan. However, I mean, if we have some delays, I would appreciate some flexibility. Or, it is, we're doing a renovation loan, or, like if there's a unique loan feature, it'd be nice to loop in all parties and just make sure we're all on the same page. It doesn't have to be negative, like we're all on the same team trying to get the transaction put together. All right. Well, those are the questions. I'm going to have a link in the description where you can download these questions, and be ready to have a surefire way to make sure that you're on top of everything going on with, a borrower's loan and financing. And you'll have a standardized thing you can ask lenders when you're about to take a buyer out to show homes, or when a buyer borrower writes an offer on your listing. Thanks. Oh, I should prize. I'm Chris Gibson, C2 Financial. Phone number is 720-449-6622. Do a free soft credit pull for anybody who wants to get pre-qualified. Um, and I love helping people with home financing.